welcome to the Proust podcast.
The inaugural.
Absolutely. Maybe the inaugural and the final, who knows?
Well, yes, maybe.
Well, we've got to give these things a go, and we'll never know unless you try.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that, at least trying to record our journeys would be quite an interesting way to do it this way. And, we're doing it at distance by chatting anyway, so why not?
Yeah, absolutely. So, where do you want to start?
Well, I suppose we should take stock, as they say.
Okay.
Where are we up to, and what we're currently thinking?
Well, I was just stick on the podcast for a moment, because I know that's something you've been thinking about for some time. There are obviously quite a few, probably tens of thousands actually, podcasts out there, millions, and of which Nomad, for example, will be one for those people for whom, well, I don't listen to it. I've had people tell me to listen to it, and I probably ought to, but there's only so many hours in a week where you can sit and listen.
Indeed.
But they're clearly the three presenters clearly are people who are part of, or have been part of traditional church in some sense, but are or have stepped outside or struggled with certain aspects of it. So there are probably numerous podcasts which deal in that sort of subject.
Yep.
So I don't know whether one would want to just do another one like that.
Well, I don't think there are lots of podcasts actually. Certainly not UK based. I mean, there are, as we know. You put the other one towards me.
Yeah.
What's it called?
Mid-faith crisis.
One,
yeah.
Which I started to listen to and then got distracted. But I will certainly go back to that. I've been listening to Nomad for years. It's become one of those little anchor points that allows me to kind of stay connected to wider thinking around faith, and particularly people like who are finding themselves beyond the institution. So I've found it really useful, and obviously some episodes hit home harder than others.
Yes, of course.
But the other thing about podcasts, which I've found to be really helpful, and Nomad is an example of that, is that it creates some kind of community connection in a way, because it's not, a lot of the stuff that we do online is ephemeral, isn't it? It's very short attention span.
Yes.
It's at you and then it's gone.
Yes.
All the memes and things that my kids send me, and I don't tend to look at them because they're there, then they're gone. Whereas podcasts, they tend to be a lot more in depth, and the discussion goes deeper, and it becomes a place that we can feel, oh yeah, this person's saying something that I'm interested in.
Yes.
And the other bit, I suppose, of what we were, so I suppose that connects with the whole kind of, if we are going to restart Proust as a community, which is, I think you and I have both felt that if we're
Very
doing this, this
so.
is not about trying to create a commercial success that's going to compete with Barnes and Noble or something. It's about trying to create community and support. Then to do that conversationally and about storytelling seems to me really important. So for me, a podcast, both recording that journey starts to become really interesting.
Yes.
Because other people can see, they can get to know those of us that may put ourselves in a situation of trying to kind of make this happen, and get a view as to whether they think, actually, no, that they're dodgy pair of geezers they are. I don't want anything to do with them.
Yeah.
But also it becomes a place that we can host others who
Yes.
are part of that to tell their story. It'd be
Yes.
lovely to hear a lot about what Proust used to be from people like Johnny and Ad and
Yeah.
others who were part of that, and what excited them about that at the time. And then also, because we're in different times now. When Proust started 20 years ago, is it as long ago as that? It must
Probably.
be.
Probably.
Not only was the world different, but the
Mm.
Christian world in the
Mm.
UK was different. So, what was needed then was something to gather ideas around this thing that was being called the emerging church.
Yes.
So to gather the liturgies that were being written and the poetry
Yeah.
that was being written and
Yeah.
the films
Yeah.
that were being made and make that available. And I know one of the first things that I and many others used from Proust was their labyrinth kit.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where
did
I
you?
came
Did you?
across Proust. Now
Oh,
that's
you
how
used it
I
as.
came across Proust.
Okay,
Yeah.
same with us. So tell
Um,
me, when did you use the labyrinth kit?
yes. We. Goodness knows how I came across it, because it would have been at least in the very early days of the internet. So I must have. How could I have come? I can't think how I came across it, but I remember presumably sent away for something, and it came back to me in a tin. I had a tin with the instructions and some, gosh, audio, literally a videotape. There's
Yeah,
definitely at least a videotape in it, maybe more than
I've
one.
still got mine, Rob.
There we go. I've got mine digitally somewhere on my PC,
Yeah,
because we did use it, and then it wasn't actually that long ago that we did it again in the church we were attending at the time, and it was, even though then it was 15 years old, I don't think it matters at all, because
no,
what this idea of journeying in a labyrinth and um, stopping yourself and centering yourself on a particular station is something that no one ever does. We
yeah,
don't stop most of the time ever, do we? So it was so different from most people. And I think I remember we kept the notepad, we asked people to leave their remarks, and without fail, they were very deep. People really encountered something.
yeah.
So we still got the stuff somewhere.
Yes, yeah, same. But I suppose the those resources, some of them, since Proust has become inactive and the site has gone down, are not available anywhere else. There are books that are not currently available to other people, and so there's a legacy there which would be nice to kind of do, or at least gather again and try and rebuild into something if there's still people that want to do that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't tell the story of what happens next. And
No.
that's the bit that really excites me is to think again
Yeah.
about why would we still need something like Proust. Who are the people that would benefit, and what even would be the unifying spirituality that would allow us to tell a story that would allow other people to make
Yes.
spiritual journeys, and
Yeah.
that's and it's that there's. I mean, we've obviously had a conversation about that already, but it's not as straightforward as it was in my mind,
No.
anyway.
No. I think there's two things I would want to ask or raise. The one was, and don't answer this one now. One was, as a writer yourself, how would Proust help you now, or how would it have helped, or how did it help going, in the past? And equally, how, when it comes to publishing, like your After the Apocalypse, would do you think Proust would get you to a larger audience? So that's a very big question there. And the second one was, actually, this came out on the Nomad podcast, I have to say, and connected to our last conversation, which was that idea of the spirituality angle. What is it that has to be core to what Proust stands for?
It feels
it
like
can
we
be
need.
very broad. Well, it could be one thing that we have to agree on, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Everything else is a very broad church.
Yes. It feels like we need a podcast episode for each one of those questions, don't we? And maybe that's what we should do. But responding, I suppose, first to your thing about what Proust did for me as a writer, is it was the first time that anybody else had recognised something that I had written as being valuable, not just within my small group.
Right.
So it was absolutely transformative for me. The first thing that I did with Proust was we had, in the wake of the Labyrinth kit and various other things, we had started to use a resource from Cy Smith, which was a Lent series of Lent 40 drawings for Lent that Cy did, which were just, I mean, they're still available now quite widely across Tinternet. And we wove these things into a dramatic presentation with soundscapes and lighting and video projection, and I wrote a script that went with it. And we thought, actually, this is really a really lovely thing. The combination of things. I wonder if we could actually do something with this and try and make it available. And so that's where when I first met Cy. So I just messaged him and sent him the script and said, look, is this okay? Do you think we could put this together with the images?
Did you know Cy at all?
No.
You just come across his work.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I think it was through Proust actually. I think it was through having again the Labyrinth kit, then looking on the other resources that were available.
Yeah.
And we were part of a small missional, isolated, weird Christian group that just up here in Scotland were desperate to find connection and peers and people doing the same. So Cy was very kind, and he spoke to some of the Proust guys at the time and said, look, would you be interested in putting this together? And that's what happened. So that was the first thing that was published. And I still remember the point when the box of books came.
Right.
And you open that box of books and there's these things with my name on.
Wow. Yeah.
And Cy's name on. And I'm still, I haven't looked at that resource for a long time, but I know the emotionality of it, and I know the way that it kind of allowed me to connect with something really deep in myself, and in that search for who God was, and so all of that was really, really important. But the recognition of that, and then from that, having dipped my toe in, and then the next thing that I wrote was the listings connection, which was a collection of poems based on the great lists in the Bible, so the time to and all those kinds of things. Yeah, and that I suddenly began to see myself as someone who could write rather than someone who had written something.
Okay.
And more than that, I started to see myself as part of a tribe, because then that opened up a series of connections around Greenbelt, and our small group up in Dunoon became part of the worship stream at Greenbelt, doing events there, which gave us another sense of belonging. But Proust was always part of that, the sort of the edginess of and the fact that we could be as experimental and as left field and as controversial as we wanted to be, as long as we brought our own integrity and our own journey to that. And that was part of Proust's writing, as well as being part of the Greenbelt thing. So those two things were hand in hand.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was about and particularly Johnny Baker's character as well. I mean, if he ever hears this, he might cringe to hear me say that, but he seems to me to someone who was quite good at including people who wouldn't necessarily have been included.
Okay.
So we were then part of. Johnny used to pull together some meetings, which I think were labelled under Tautoko, which is one of those old social media platforms before Facebook, which allowed people to gather online and have discussion groups and all that sort of thing. But they had an annual meetup of other small missional groups, so a number of people from our group went to and were part of that. So yeah, belonging was a huge part of that. But then, and the other kind of bit that I then got involved in was putting together anthologies of poetry. So we did 2 Proust collections of mainly new writers. I mean, there were some people that had been published before, but the bulk of people were new writers. And thousands of these poems would come in, and we would, for the first book I did on my own, which was crazy. The second book, I think there were about 7 different editors.
Okay, right, yeah.
And that was exactly that same thing. The release, the feeling of people writing on their own, and writing beautiful things, writing soul-wrenching, beautiful things that nobody would ever see beyond maybe 2 or 3 of their friends and their mum.
Yeah.
And a lot of spiritual writing, it feels like that's okay, because it's about you managing to externalize something that's inside.
Yes.
But some of it releases that something deep in other people, because we respond to it. I mean, you're a reader of poetry, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So it was trying to find that writing, as opposed to the people making their own spiritual journey writing, which is still, and there's a blurry line between the two, of course, but trying to find the things that have something to say that would allow other people to travel. But then in doing that, in seeing those people, in connecting with those people, having this profound sense of them being set free as writers.
Yes.
And I mean, there's a lot of these people I never met, but I've met quite a few of them, either through meetups that we had at Greenbelt, or just because subsequently our paths have crossed. And just, I have this thing inside myself that if I've done nothing else in life, I've encouraged some people to write, and that's good.
Yeah.
So that's a long answer to your first question, I think. Can't remember what the other 2 were.
Well, but maybe that's, in a nutshell then, that's kind of what I think both of us would like to enable in some small way. Because while it sounds, it is that. I know the poetry it has to start, I think, as a consumer, it has to start as being intensely personal to the writer. And that's the beauty, that's the wonder of poetry, because that's exactly what it is, isn't it? It doesn't. That's how it works. Beyond any other, certainly beyond any other written form, and possibly beyond any other art form. If there's something about poetry which is no one can quite understand. So I've gone off on a tangent, and my brain was.
Well, I'm remembering your second question actually, and this might be worth. Which was, would the last book that I published, which was self-published, using exactly the same formats, exactly the same vehicles that Proust used to comb together a number of different releases. Would it have been better to have released it through Proust? One of the challenges that we always had with Proust is we had no staff, we had no resources. So things that were released through Proust, yes, there might have been a bit of a networking boost through Proust itself, through other Proust artists, through for a while we were all reading blogs, weren't we? Nobody reads
Yeah.
blogs anymore. Speaking
No.
as someone who still writes a blog, it's not.
But as you said to me, that your blog is basically an outpouring of
Exactly.
thought.
It's all about releasing the whirlwind and mess inside.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah. So but what we do have is lots of people, a community with social media presences, and that's really how poetry travels these days, as far as I can see. It's through people sharing poems on Facebook, through films being made of that include words and all those sorts of things, which then go on YouTube. So my hope is that actually what Proust does is it just it uses the power of community
Yes.
to encourage and carry some of that forward, and that is revealed. That is at least in part revealed in a greater number of people reading the material that
Yes.
that will be released. I mean, my ambition for my work was to take it on the road, and we've done a bit of that. But it's hard work. It really is. When you've got all sorts of other commitments, it's really hard to pull together events and a
Yes.
series of things on your own.
Yeah.
But as part of a community of people who are doing that, then maybe there's different possibilities for hosting of readings, for people, getting it into other shops and things. And certainly that's easier in terms of the actual publishing process than it's ever been, because the world has become increasingly digitised.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I'll mention this now, but only because I picked up on it, and I don't know how important this is. It's certainly not important at this stage. Is clearly Nomad they've managed to monetize the podcast in some way.
Yeah, they do that through Patreon.
Yes.
Which is, I mean,
so
Michaela
does
and I were
Mid-Faith
talking.
Crisis. So does Mid-Faith Crisis.
Yeah. We have a Patreon account as well for our small business, which we have a pathetically but marvellously small number of beautiful people that have supported us. The way that Patreon, you can have people can donate for different tiers.
Yes.
Or you can have one tier. You don't have to have different tiers. And it becomes, or people can just do a one-off. I think they call it a cup of coffee. People can buy you a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
That's a different program. Oh, apparently Michaela in the background tells me that's a different program. But there are other ways that people can donate as a one-off.
Funnily enough, I thought when I've heard that phrase, buy me a cup of coffee, on many different platforms, and I thought they were just being metaphorical, in other words.
Someone knocks on the door with a Rainforest Alliance coffee cup and say,
exactly that. I thought you were saying, you mean, no, literally buy me a cup of coffee,
Yeah.
But they've clearly done that on Nomad to some extent, which...
Yeah. I mean, at the moment, the platforms that we're starting this discussion on, that if this becomes Proust podcast number 1, have cost us nothing, and I'm yet to see whether that means that there'll be all sorts of intrusive adverts that we really don't want to see happening. The actual hosting packages aren't very much. Like I think it's less than £10 a month.
Right.
Maybe £6 a month. I can't remember exactly. So we don't need a lot to make that happen.
No.
But I suppose we go back then in my mind to again, why would we do that? Why would we? You and I mean, I always like talking to you, Rob. So it's not a difficult thing for me to do. But why? I guess we're back to that, trying to create connection and community, and to think about it. If we're starting a new project which is about collaborative, artists supporting one another, if that's where we're heading, then how do we do that without connecting with those people and allowing them to be part of the discussion and inviting them to talk about it more in a more holistic way? I mean, for example, item 1, as we've already item 1 or 2 was this spirituality thing.
Yeah.
Is that for us to decide? Probably not, is it? We need to perhaps be part of a discussion about
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
and ultimately somebody might need to pull that discussion together and say, well, look, this is where we think we need to be. These are the and it might be that if the community of people aren't supportive of where we're comfortable with, then they need to run Proust, not us. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. So, which therefore suggests that we need to, at some point, we need to invite some other people into this
Yes, I think so.
discussion. I don't. This is where my silence is me struggling with the idea of is you can't invite everybody all at once,
No.
which means therefore you have to invite one other person and then maybe another person and then or once you've got a core, actually then it springs to life.
Yeah. Well, I think we've already started to, in this discussion, themes are emerging. So I think what you and I need to do is to do some teasing apart of those themes, and then when we think of themes, think of guests that
Okay.
that fit with those themes, and do it that way. And I suppose we have a constituency of potential guests based around the current
Yes.
or existent or past Proust sort of number. Sorry, I've got Michaela sitting at the back, so suggesting what was already in my mind already because she knows me so well. Well, I mean, one of the people is to we've talked about, for example, interviewing the people about the foundations of Proust.
Yes.
And for that we should speak to Johnny and see if he and anybody else who was around at that time would want to be part of that discussion. I know he's recently done a retrospective podcast, which I haven't listened to yet, around like a bit of a look back over this thing called emerging church. So he's obviously in a very reminiscent frame of mind.
Yes, I did see that, and it's one that's on my sort of radar to listen to because I'm just interested. Full stop.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, I'm conscious that there are clearly at least, like you say, these themes. There is the story, the history, if you like, of how Proust came to being. Then there's very clearly, as you said earlier, the new Proust. I don't necessarily know at this stage which one comes first. If you know what I mean. Do you? I'm absolutely sure you're right that speaking to Johnny and others about the story sounds really interesting. But the but there is, but it's only interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's not about now and the future. It might create thoughts, but I don't know. I'm thinking out loud.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to be tied to the past.
Oh, absolutely not.
I want to honour the past.
That.
I want to honour the people who have got us to this point. But I don't want to do things because that's the way they did it.
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, my thought about speaking to them is more about just wondering how much of the ethos is something that we would carry forward.
Yeah.
And how much of it has changed. And I think that goes for the spiritual content as well as the actual physical material, that was mainly around church-based events. And I don't know if that is necessarily anything that is still as true for me as it would be for other people. I don't know. But anyway, our discussion is now raging up to half an hour. So
right.
I think we've got some homework to do, and we've got some. So very shortly, I'm going to press pause on our
Okay.
recording,
Okay. Yep.
and you and I will, in the background, beaver away. And for
Yes.
episode 2 of the Proust podcast, all of these questions will have been resolved towards something
Let's do
else.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Right.
you're gonna press pause, and then are we going to carry on talking just for a few moments?
Well, we might do.
Okay,
But
that's fine. I just want to know. Just want to warm up.
the listeners will never know.
Not at this stage until we publish it.
Exactly. Okay.
Okay.